Welcome back, guys, to my discussion on visual analytics using Tableau. Yesterday we had a introduction session where I have discussed about the Tableau introductions and how we can use the Tableau product and how we can use the tips and tricks to install Tableau in our local system, and what are the ways by which you can use this particular Tableau version, the desktop version, without going for the activation or buying the keys. And I've also discussed about the types of product that Tableau offers. I have shown you how we can download this particular setup file and how we can initialize this particular application. Given a detailed walkthrough of the different aspect, the different section of the Tableau application. What is the difference between live and extract? What is the interface? What is the major dimensions? Understanding of the shelves, what are pills? So today we'll be working on a summary table and we'll be working on some basic charts. I'll also discuss about the types of aggregation and format. After that, we'll see what is the best format to save a Tableau report. And then we'll move to the visual analytics section where I'll be talking about some basic charts. We'll work on the visual segment and we'll work on some hands-on example of the different categories of visual segments. So these are the topics that are in line for today's discussion. I hope whatever I discussed till now, it's clear with you and you have got a clear roadmap as how this particular discussion is going to progress. So let's start. The first thing that I'm going to take up today is the best practices that we can follow while working with any reports or working with measures and dimensions. So without wasting much time, let's go and get into some actions where I'll be using some hands-on example. Now this is my Tableau application and I have initialized this particular application, and let's connect to a particular data set and let's create a summary table and let's see what are the best approaches that we can follow to select a dimension and a measure from the worksheet section and how we can create certain reports from there. Rishabh, I will give you a small walkthrough at the end of this particular session. So I'll again discuss how we can install this particular application without using the product key, without going for the product key. So please follow the session through. But at the end of this session, I will again discuss the steps by which we can just install Tableau in a local system without going for the keys or the activating the product keys and all. Fine. So coming back to the discussion, let's first connect to a data set. So I'll click on this Microsoft Excel and let me select this Superstore USA data. Now the agenda for this particular example is to show you what are the best practices that we can follow while selecting any dimensions and measures. So these are the tables for the discussion for this particular table, that is Superstore USA, and there are three tables over here under this particular data, that is orders, return, and users. Now, as I said yesterday, Tableau treats each of the worksheet in a Excel workbook as a different table. So what I can do, I can drag the order table over here. Now I have dragged the order table. The connection type, let's keep it as live. All the data are properly aligned. The column names are already aligned. So let's go to sheet 1. Now sheet 1, this is the section where we see all the dimensions measures. Now, can you tell me what is the difference between dimensions and measures? Yesterday I had a small discussion on this. So a simple answer on what is dimensions and what are measures. How we can differentiate, how Tableau differentiate between dimensions and measures. Can I get a quick answer on the chat window, please? People who are following this particular section from tomorrow, from yesterday. Okay, fine. So dimensions are the columns on which we cannot perform any mathematical operations, and measures are the columns on which we can perform certain mathematical operations. Now, let us see how we can create a yes. So I'm getting some correct answers over here. That's true. That's correct actually. Now, let us create a summary table by using certain dimensions and measures. Now I will show you three approaches by which we can access the dimensions and the measures by creating a table or a report. Now for example, now suppose I want to create a report where I wanted to know the profit and the shipping cost against all the product subcategory. I repeat, the requirement is I need to create a report where I want to know the profit and the shipping cost associated with each of the product subcategory. How can you do that? Now, there are three approaches by which you can create a report. The first, drag and drop. Second, double click. Third, point and click. Now, I will show you all the three practices. Now, it's up to you to select that which is the best option, and at the end I will tell you which is the best option you can go for. Now the first, I will show you the drag and drop option. For that, what I can do, I can drag the product subcategory, select the product subcategory, and I can drag it to the row shelf. Now yesterday I have discussed what is the row shelf over here. Now you can see the moment I drag the product subcategory over here, all the product subcategories has been in line. Now the requirement is I wanted to know the profit and the shipping cost. So let's work with the profit first. What I can do, I can select. Okay, so sorry, there was a fluctuation actually in the internet. So sorry for the inconvenience, guys. So let's continue our discussion. Now what I was working on this particular report. Now what I have done, I have selected the product subcategory and I have dragged it to the row shelf. Now what I can do, I will select the profit for the major section and I will drag it, and the moment I drag this particular profit over this particular section where it is written ABC, you can see the tooltip is changing into show me. Now if I release my mouse, I can see the profit has been updated over here against each of the product subcategory. Now this is a drag and drop feature where we select the dimensions and the measures, and we can bring those particular measures and dimensions as per in the appropriate place. Like for the product subcategory, I can bring it to the row shelf, and the profit I can bring it over and I can release it over this particular section. So this was drag and drop. Now what is a point and click method? So let me clear this particular screen so we can use this particular option. If you can follow my cursor on the screen, you can see this particular option over here. You can click on this and the report screen will be cleaned up. Now the second approach by which we can select any dimension and measures is double click. So what I can do, I can double click on the product subcategory, and you can see the moment I double click on this, the row shelf has been updated with the product subcategory. And the same thing I can go for profit. I can double click on the profit and the profit has been updated over here. So this is a double click method by which we can update, we can select the dimensions and measures, and we can create a report. The third and the most important part which I follow in my day-to-day working is point and click. Now let us see how we can use this point and click method. This is the best way by which we can select any dimensions and measures. So let me clear the screen, and what I can do, I can select the product subcategory, hold down my control key and select the profit, and I can go to show me, and I can see Tableau is offering me the visuals which I can create using these dimensions and measures. You can see out of 24 visuals which Tableau provides by default, some of the visuals are enabled over here, and out of which the okay, so what I was doing, I was working on this product subcategory. I select this product subcategory, hold down my control key, go to profit, I select the profit, go to show me, and out of this particular visuals which are highlighted over here, let me select this text table. So I select this, and you can see that my report where I wanted to show the profit against the product subcategory. Now the question is why this is the best approach, because in this particular approach you can easily select multiple measures and values. For example, if I clear this particular screen, if I select the product subcategory and hold down my control key, select the profit and the shipping cost, I go to show me and I select the text table, you can see that this particular report which I was preparing, where I wanted to show the profit and the shipping cost involved in terms of the product subcategory. Now there's one interesting thing that I wanted to guide you to focus in. Now the moment I bring the multiple measures, you can see there are two measures over here. The first measure is a profit and the second measure is the shipping cost. The moment I bring a multiple measures over here, yani means more than one measure, the measure names, this particular dimension has been updated in the filter shelf and in the column shelf. Now if I remove one of the measures from here, I can simply select this particular measure and drag it out. You can see there is no measure names in the filter shelf and the column shelf. So the idea is that whenever you're using multiple measures in your report, this particular section will always be updated with the measure names. Now what are the measure names? You can see the measure names over here. So there is a measure name dimension over here. Now if you come to the measure section, you can see there is some other information like latitude, longitude, number of records, measure value. Now a lot of times I get a query that what are these values, because these values are not directly coming from the data source. If you go to the data source, if you find for the measure names over here, you can see there is no measure names or number of records or longitude latitude details available over here. So what is this? These are all created by Tableau in a background calculations. So these are the values which are created by Tableau itself, Tableau desktop. Now we don't generally use these options over here, these measures and dimensions. The only thing that we use from this particular option is sometimes is the number of records. So number of records actually shows you the number of rows that a particular data set contains. I will show you with a hands-on example. Now coming back to the example, whenever you're using multiple measures in your report, the filter and the column shelf will be updated with the measure names. Let me show you once again. I'll select the product subcategory, hold on my control key, select profit, shipping cost, go to show me option, select the text table, and you can see that I have used two measures, and the moment I use multiple measures, this filter shelf and this column shelf is got updated. Now we have created a report over here. Now let's see what are the other things we can perform on this report. Now if you send this particular report to the end user, the user will have no clue about what kind of values these are showing, whether these values are in dollars, currencies. If you're using this report to some other person who is having a good knowledge of finance, he will always try to have the minus value within bracket, because people from finance background, they always try to keep the negative values within bracket. So we need to format this kind of report. Also, this particular report misses in the total. So there is no total associated with each of the columns. So these are all comes under report formatting. These are all comes under the way where we have to format this particular report to make this report more and more interactive. How can I do that? The first thing that we can fix is to add a total to each of the column. Now how we can do that? We can do that by selecting the analysis option over here, and we can go to the total, go to analysis, select totals, and under total you can see the show column grand totals. You can click on show column grand total and you can see that both the columns has been updated with the grand total value. Yes, these videos will be available in the playlist, Jags. Yeah, Manish, this is the part of the Tableau community course by Aineron. Yeah, this is the part of that particular course where you can join. So Venkat, this particular course is more or less for 5 to 6 weeks. But however, I'll be talking about some new updates that will be coming to you, which will be a new add-ons to the particular course, because this application is getting developed, is getting updated with some new features every month. So I'll be discussing about those features about also. So it may take few classes more if I exit those particular video. Yeah, yesterday's video will be updated shortly. So there's some technical issues going on. That's why yesterday's video is not able to get updated in the playlist. However, we'll try to update it to today itself after this particular session. In the meantime, you can follow this particular video and you can just follow the things that I'm teaching over here. Fine. So the next, getting back to this particular example. So we have added a grand total to each of the columns like profit and shipping. Now the next thing what I want to add a currency symbol for against each of the values for both the columns, and also I want to keep the negative values. You can see there are certain negative profit associated with some of the product subcategories like bookcases, rubber bands, scissors, rulers. There are certain negative value associated with this particular values, this particular product subcategory. So the first thing what I can do, let's add a currency value to each of the columns. For that, we can go to this particular measure and you can click on this downward arrow. Now, for profit, click on this particular arrow and select format option. Now, the moment I select format option, you can see there is a default number value that has been appeared in the screen. Now what I can do, I can select this number option and I have to go to this currency custom. As I am dealing with currency values, I'll go to currency custom, not standard. Now as I select the currency custom, you can see by default a currency symbol has been associated, has been updated or prefixed with each of the profit values. Now I can change this particular value to dollar. I can select a dollar sign from my keyboard and I can update it with the dollar. Now, what if I want to show the negative values in bracket? So if you go in the above option, there is one option over here called negative values. Now what I can do, I can click on this drop down and you can see there is an option over here called where the values are within the bracket. I select this particular option over here and I have also the option to reduce the decimal places to 0. And you can see that this particular format, this particular column has been formatted where there is a grand total, there is a currency symbol associated with each of the values, and all the negative values has been within the bracket. Now the same thing we can do for the shipping cost. We can go over here, click on format, number, currency custom. We can update it to the dollar sign, keeping the negative values within bracket, and we are done. That's it. Now the question is, I have updated these values and I have made all the changes as per the requirement. Now there's one more new requirement comes. The business owners wanted to know the average shipping cost. He doesn't want the whole value. He doesn't want the summation, the sum value for shipping cost. The owner wants that that what is the average shipping cost associated with each of the product subcategory. Now for updating this particular column, for transforming this particular column from a sum value to the average value, what we can do, we can go and click on this particular arrow again, and this time you have to go to this option measure. Now the moment I select this measure option, you can see there are a lot of measure values over here, and the default value selected is sum. What I can do, I can select the average value, and here we go. This particular column has been transformed from sum value to an average value. Now this particular example is good for this particular report. Now what if you have to prepare a report where you have to use the profit and the shipping cost every time? For example, if I take a new worksheet and I prepare the same report, what I have to do, I can select the product subcategory, hold on my control key, select the profit, shipping cost, go to show me, select the text table, and you can see that every time I prepare a report, I have to again format this particular column in terms of rupees and in terms of the average shipping cost. So every time I have to do the same work, and that is not a good approach, right? You should always work in a way that you don't have to perform the same task again and again, because that's not a good way of practice. That's not the best practices that we can have for preparing any report. Now learning this particular application doesn't require any technical skills or any coding skills. You just need to know the options that you need to select and certain formulas and functions which are written in simple English. You can use those things and you can create awesome reports. You can create awesome visuals. Now coming back to the example, next time when I prepare this report, I have to again format these two columns, and I don't want to perform this particular task again and again. So what I can do, in the earlier example, whatever changes I have done, those changes were local to this particular report. Next time when I prepare the same report, I have to again go and format these columns, and that is not a good way. So what we can do, we can do a global format or a global aggregation, where instead of doing the changes over here within the report measures, what if I can perform this particular task directly into the measure sections? How? Let me clear this report, and before preparing the report, let me do the formatting and the aggregation in the measure section itself. Like for profit, I can go to this field directly, click over here, go to default properties. In default properties, we have option like comment, color, number format, aggregation. What I can do, I can go to number format, select the currency custom, and I can update it with the $, and I can change the negative values with the bracket and click OK. The same thing I can go and do it for shipping cost. I can click on the shipping cost, go to default properties. Out of these options, go to number format, go to custom currency and update it to the $, and select the negative value within the bracket. And also I can change the measure from here also. So I'll select, go to default properties, and this time I will select aggregation, which is by default selected to sum. Let's select average. Now what happens? Whatever changes we have done, that has been implemented on a global scale. Next time when I prepare the same report, I select the product subcategory, I go to profit, I go to shipping cost, select show me, select this table, and you can see both the columns has been already been formatted and where the shipping cost is already been changed to average shipping cost. So this is the way we can do some global formatting, and we can work on some global aggregations before we prepare our report. Now these are the best practices that you can follow while working with a report, whether it's all about selecting the dimensions and measures, whether it's about formatting the columns, or whether it's all about changing the measures, changing the aggregation of the column. So what are aggregations? Aggregations are nothing but getting a single value by the result by combining or by using multiple values. So like sum is an aggregations where we use multiple values, we perform an addition on that, we get a single value. Average is an aggregation, count can be an aggregation. So we can perform local aggregations as I showed you in the first example within the report, and we can perform global aggregations where we can use the measure section. Now measure is on which we can perform calculation. So aggregation will obviously on measures. We cannot perform aggregation on dimensions. Now that we have done all these things, we have created a report and we have formatted the report, it's time to save our work. Now Tableau offers two kind of formats for saving a work. Let us see what are those format. Now I will go to file and I'll go to save as, and you can see there is an option over here. So there are two kind of option. One is .twb, that is Tableau workbook, and one is .twbx. Now let's find the difference between the .twb format and .twbx. Now if you save your work in a .twb format, what happens if you share your work to the end user, and if that particular end user doesn't have the data set, he will be unable to open your report. The report will not work at the user end. Now if you save the work in .twbx format, even if the end user doesn't have the data set, he can open the report. Now what is TWBX format? TWBX format is the format by which we actually save our work. So we can keep the work as a report, and we can save this particular work TWBX. Now TWBX, what it does, it's like a zip file. What it does, it actually creates a zip file which will contain all the changes that we have done in the report, whether in terms of colors, terms of images, if I have used anything, any kind of formatting, the data set, everything gets clubbed into a one package, and that is TWBX. So the most commonly used format for saving your Tableau report is .twbx format. Even if the user doesn't have the data set, he can also open the report at his end and he can just follow it. Now we can save this report, and we are done. Now this is what we do on a end-to-end basis. Now let's go to the next level of discussion. The next level of discussion will be all about visual segment. In this particular segment, I'll be talking about visual analytics. I'll talk about how we can perform sorting, how we can perform common visuals. I will talk about scatterplot, histogram, bar graph, pie chart, line graph, stacked bar chart, donut chart. So these are all the common visuals, and then we'll go to the advanced level visualization. Now let's start with visual analytics. Now before I start into visual analytics, these are the things that I'm going to discuss today. The first thing is the golden rule by how we can go and select a particular visual to represent the analysis that we have performed in our data. Now there are six major visual segments which is most commonly used in a day-to-day working. Let's start with composition. Now composition means finding a composition in a data. You have a sales, you have any particular final report where there are a lot of categories. Now the contribution for each of the categories has resulted in the final result. For example, there are a lot of product category, and for each category there is a different sales line. Now if you can combine those two categories, you get a single sales report. In that case, whenever you're trying to find the contribution for each of the product category, we use the concept of composition like pie chart, donut chart, etc., or a tree map. Now there are, under this particular family of composition, there can be a lot of charts. So it's a task for you. I have told you that under composition there are pie chart or donut chart or tree map. I request you to please explore this composition and the type of visual that we can use under composition segment. The next is comparison. Comparison means suppose you have a sales data for a multiple region. Now you need to find the comparison. You have to compare the sales between the regions. So you can go for a comparison. The charts belong to this particular visual segment, that is bar graph or stacked bar graph, combo chart. So this kind of visuals helps you to compare for comparing the data variables that are there in your data set. Then it comes to distribution. Distribution, the best example for distribution, for example, if you have of a particular data set and you wanted to know how for example, you have a data set where you have a customer details and you want to know the age of the customer, how the age of the customer has been distributed over your data. So you can go for a distribution visuals like histogram. Histogram is a best example of finding distribution in your data. A lot of people get confused between bar graph and histogram. Now it's clear when you have to use a histogram and when you have to use a bar graph. Bar graph can be used for comparison, and histogram is the best way to find the distribution in your data. Now suppose you have a scenario in your business where you wanted to know that in order to earn certain profit, how much sales has been made and how much quantity has been supplied for that particular sales value, so that I have earned this much of profit. Now if you can mark my words, I have talked about three variables: quantity, sales, and profit. And the scenario is you wanted to know that how much quantity has been supplied in order to make this amount of sale and in order to earn this amount of profit. So over here we have to find a relationship between sales and quantity to understand the profit. Now whenever there is a relationship between two variables in your data set, we use the visuals that are related to the relation visual segment, and the best example is Scatterplot. I will show you each of the visuals today in this particular session with some hands-on examples. Now suppose you have a data where you need to find the trend, for example a share market. So you know that how the share market works. It works on a trend, upward trend and lower trend. Whenever there is a trend in your data, you can go for the visuals which represent trends. For example, line chart. Now there can be two kinds of line chart, discrete and continuous. Now I will discuss about what is discrete and what is continuous. And I will also work on the versions of line chart. And the next is maps. And the name is clear enough that whenever your data consists of certain demographic values, we use a map visual. In yesterday's session, I have shown you how we can convert a data into a map visual, and we can see. So I will again come back to the Tableau map dedicatedly in the future upcoming discussions, where I will be discussing about end-to-end on the different uses of maps that we can do. Keeping in this mind this visual segment, let's understand the concept of visual analytics. Now this is where we are getting into the core area of understanding Tableau and how Tableau helps you to perform visual analytics with your data by considering the visual segments that we have discussed right now. Visual analytics is nothing but the process by which the data provides insights by solving a problem where we can represent the pattern, the trend, the relationship using certain graphs or charts. Don't go by the definition written over here. Just try to understand by simple logic. Performing certain analysis in your data. That analysis can involve finding the trend, the pattern, the relationship, and representing those analysis, those patterns with the help of charts and visuals is what we termed as visual analytics. That's it. It's as simple as that. Now, from the school days, we have worked with various charts like bar graph. When there was a subject called geometry, right? So in statistics also we have done certain. When you have studied statistics, we have worked closely with certain charts, bar graph, pie chart. Now, this is the implementation of those learnings that we have done in an advanced way. Now, the first segment of visuals that we are going to work with is Scatterplot. Now, what is a scatterplot? Now, by now you know we use scatterplot to find the relationship between the data. It also known as XY plots. Now, if you can focus on the example in the right hand side of your screen, then it will be easy for you. Now, there is a comparison done where a sale of sweater actually increases when the temperature falls and it decreases when the temperature increases. So if you keep an eye on the temperature and the sweater sales value, so you can understand the relationship between temperature and the sweater. Now my question is, there's an important concept what we work in scatterplot, that is dependent and independent value. Now can you tell me which is the dependent value over here, the temperature or the sales? Just you can just keep an eye, you can just study this particular diagram or the example, and you can point me out that what is a dependent variable and what is an independent variable over here. So the dependent variable over here is sales, because the sales is dependent on the temperature, and as per the rules of scatterplot, the dependent variable should always be in the y-axis and the temperature is the independent variable. Now another example which we can take is income and expenses. Now you can think what is a dependent variable and what is a independent variable. So it's very important that you need to first understand the difference between independent and dependent variable in understanding, in creating, in plotting the scatter plot. And you should always keep the dependent variable in the y-axis. Now let us work on a scenario. Now what I have a data set that is called car maker. It's a text file, and I'll be working on the concept of price and horsepower. Now I leave it to you to decide that what will be the dependent and what will be the independent variable. Now let's get back to some action and see how we can plot this particular scatter plot by using the data that I have. So let me fire up my Tableau application, and what I can do, I can remove this particular data as of now from here, or what I can do, I can just use this particular option and let us connect to the data files. I'll click on text file and I'll use this carmaker.csv file. Now this particular data contains the details of manufacturing a car. It contains the fuel type, the number of doors. So this is a way, it's an automobile data, so which is collected in terms of all the details of the car, the body style, drive wheels, engine location, wheelbase. So typical data which contains the automobile details. Now what I can do, I can come to a new sheet over here and let's select this particular data. So you can see car maker has been selected. Now what I want to find the price and the horsepower relation. So let us select the car ID, hold down our control key, select the price from the measure section and the horsepower from the measure section. Now price, horsepower, these are all listed under measure section because we can perform certain mathematical operation on that. And car ID being a numerical value, still it is under dimension because we cannot perform any operations on IDs. We cannot form an average car ID or highest car ID, right? Now what I have done, I have selected this pills from here and I'll go to show me, and you can see that out of the 24 visuals, Tableau is actually suggesting us these are the visuals that we can go for, and out of this scatter plot is highlighted. Now you can click on the scatter plot and here we go. So we are able to plot a scatter plot over here. So let me name this particular worksheet as scatter plot. Now there is a basic mistake in this particular chart. Can you guys just focus on that? Can you just point it out? I can reply in the chat window. So there is a basic mistake that has been done. So this mistake is not done intentionally. That the mistake has been done while plotting. So Tableau has done this mistake, but we can fix that particular mistake over here. The mistake is price is a dependent variable. And as per the rule of scatter plot, we need to always plot the dependent variable in the y-axis. Now, how we can bring the price from x-axis to the y-axis? So we can see the price has been plotted into the x-axis and the horsepower is in the y-axis. But price is dependent on the horsepower. The greater the horsepower of the car, the greater the price will be. That is how the trend looks, right? Now, in order to change the price bring the price from x-axis to y-axis, we have an option over here. If you can see follow my cursor, you can see just below the window option, there is an option icon where if I hover my mouse, there's a tooltip coming swap rows and columns. If I click on this, price will be shifted to y-axis and horsepower is shifted to the x-axis. Now I can select the entire view option from this over here. So it is standard view. I can select an entire view to have a proper understanding. And you can see as the horsepower is increasing, actually the trend is going upward. The price is going upward. And as the horsepower is low, the cluster of this particular segment of cars are being low at price. So price is dependent on the horsepower. Now the question is, yes, Avinash, you are correct. And Mukesh, yes, we can swap that, and that is what I have done over here. Thanks, so your answers are correct. Now, we have plotted the price and the horsepower successfully. Now let's add some more conditions to this particular chart. The first condition, out of this car IDs which is there over here, I wanted to know what are the cars which comes under the fuel type petrol and what are the cars that comes under the fuel type diesel. Now there is a fuel type option dimension over here. Under dimension section there is a fuel type column. Now if I come to the data source and if you go to fuel type over here, you can see there is a gas and diesel. So gas stands for petrol, you can take it, and diesel. Now I wanted to know how many cars or not, I wanted to know which are the car IDs which comes under the fuel type gas and diesel. The best way to do that is I can drag this fuel type, I can select this fuel type and I can bring it to the color mark. And you can see the car IDs which are turned in orange comes under the petrol segment, and the car which turns in blue, the bubbles are blue in color, comes under diesel. Now we can make this particular visual more and more informative. What we can do? We can change the shape of the diesel car and we can change the shape of the bubble for the petrol car. For that we can again bring the fuel type over the level shape. There's a shape card over here, you can see. You can drag the fuel type and you can release your mouse over the shape and you can see for the diesel we have a bubble or circle, for the gas we have a square. We can further edit these shapes. You can click on this shape card and you can see there's a pop-up window coming up over here. What you can do, you can select the diesel and you can select option from here. So let us select this particular field option. Now we can select diesel over here and select a solid circle, and for the gas you can select a star and you can apply it. Now you can see that for the diesel we have a solid circle and for the star we have, for the petrol we have a star shape. Now you can change the size of this particular shapes. There's a size card over here. You can click over here and you can increase the size and you can make this particular car IDs more and more prominent. Now you can see how we can add more information to this particular report that we are building. The next condition that we can work on this particular report is how we can, suppose I have a scenario that I want to purchase a car where I want to, my requirement is that the horsepower should be 170 or more and the price should be 25k or less. I repeat, the scenario is I want to purchase a car where my requirement is that the horsepower should be more than 170 or more, or the price should be less than 25,000 or less. Now how can I find the answers from this particular scatter plot? The question is, how will this particular chart will help me to buy a car under the following requirement? We can achieve that scenario with the help of a reference line. We can add a reference line to that particular, to this particular scatter plot. How we can add a reference line? We can go to the horsepower axis and we can do a right click over here, and when we right click on this particular horsepower axis, you can see there is an option called add reference line. Now when I select this particular option, this particular menu window will pop up. Under this there is a scope section where there are three options: entire table, per pen and per cell. Now let us keep this particular option to per pen, and under the line segment let us go and select the constant option from here, and from the value we can change it from 48 to 170. Now you can see the moment I update these values, there's a reference line that has been created. My requirement was I was looking for a car whose horsepower is 170 or more and my budget is 25k or less. Now we can format this line. We can go over here and we can select a line of our choice. You can change the thickness of the line and you can also change the color. You can also go for a dotted line and we can click OK. So our first requirement has been taken care of, where my horsepower has been properly defined with this reference line. The same thing we can go for the price section. You can right click, go to add reference, change it to constant and change the value to 25,000, and you can see the 25,000 mark is there. You can change the line to dotted and you can just select a different color this time and you can click OK. Now as per my requirement, I was looking for a car which is 170 or more and less than 25,000, and I got my answer. There are two cars, the car ID 99 and the car ID 69 are the two cars which comes under the petrol segment, the gas segment, and which actually fulfills my requirement. Now I can go and buy any of the one of these two cars. So you can see how Scatterplot helped me to make a decision about purchasing a car as per my requirement. And also I have able to drill down to the next level of information in terms of the fuel types. So now I can buy a petrol car under this particular segment. I can approach these two cars and I can go and buy any one of the car as per my requirement. So this is how we can use a scatter plot for showing the relationship between the different variables measures in our data set. So the scenario was which we discussed was completely taken care of. The next segment is histogram. Now as I said, histogram is used to find the distribution of the data. Now let us take a scenario. The scenario is I want to find the distribution of length in the same data set. So every car has a length and I want to find the distribution of the length that is being distributed over this particular data set. So I can go to my Tableau and I can take a new worksheet this time. Let me rename this worksheet as histogram. And if you can see in the measure section, there is a length column. Now, there's an important thing that I want to point out over here. Whenever you use a histogram in Tableau, Tableau itself by default creates a bin value, a length bin, or if we use any other value, which is where we need to find the distribution, how that particular value is distributed in our data set, Tableau will by default create a bin under the dimension section. Now you keep an eye under the dimension section. When I select this length value, there will be a length bin automatically created over here. So you can just keep an eye over here. I select the length option from here under the measure section. I go to show me and you can see there are three visuals that has been suggested by Tableau, out of which we can see there is a histogram over here. So I select this histogram and you can see the length distribution has been shown over here. Now you can see there's a length bin that has been automatically created the moment I use this length measure to create a histogram. And these are the number of cars which falls under this particular length. Now I have also an option to change this length, to edit this length value. And how I can do that? I can do that by editing the bin, length bin under the dimension section. I can click on this and I can go to edit option And you can see the size of the bin over here is 4.66. What if I increase this size? Now whenever the bin size is increased, the number of bars associated with this histogram will also decrease. For example, if I increase the size to 10, you can see the number of bars has been decreased. So between 140 and 150 there are 3 cars. Between 150 to 160 there are 30 cars. So this is the length, how it has been distributed over the data set in terms of the car length. Now what if I wanted to know, I have the length information now. I know that these are the cars which are been distributed. The length has been distributed and these are the number of cars under this following length. I wanted to know that out of this particular bar, how many cars are petrol and how many cars are diesel. How we can know that? We can know that by using the fuel type option. So we need to bring this fuel type option over the color card, and the moment I bring, you can see that each of the bar graph has been labeled. Now out of this, between 170 and 180 length, 63 cars comes under the fuel type gas and 6 cars comes under the fuel type diesel. Now if you can keep a close eye into the last bar, that is between 200 to 210, we are unable to get the proper car number. These numbers are actually got overlapped. Now Tableau also offers you to see the overlap values that are hidden in that particular bar. We can also see that particular value. How? We can go to the label mark and you can see there's an option over here called allow labels to overlap other marks. You just need to check mark this box and you can see these bars has been updated with the values like 1 and 2. So the overlapping values are not visible. And you have a clear idea that this is the length distribution in my data and these are the cars which falls under the petrol segment and the cars which falls under the diesel segment. Now this is how we can use a histogram to find out this kind of information. We can change the color. If you go and click and you can change the color over here, you can click on the color mark, click on edit colors, select the option that you want to change the color, select the color from here, click on apply and you can change the colors also as per your convenience. Now this is the histogram. The next segment that I'm going to talk about is a bar graph. Now as I said, it comes under the visual segment of comparison. It's very important that you know for which analysis we should use which visuals. So bar graph is used for comparison. Now the scenario that I will be using is I wanted to know the number of cars which are there for different body style. Now what is body style? Let's go back to the Tableau desktop, go back to this data source and there is a column called body style. Now this particular column contains the data related to the body style of the car, whether it's a convertible, hatchback, sedan or it's a wagon. So these are the body style of a car. So you must be familiar with this particular body style by now because we can see a lot of segment of car nowadays in the market. So some are hatchback, some are convertible, sedan, wagon. Now I wanted to know how many cars are there for each of the body style. Now let's use a bar graph for this particular analysis. I can go over here, click on this sheet, take a new worksheet and rename it as bar graph. And what I can do, I can select the body style from the dimension, and this is the first time that I'm going to use a option which is not from the data source, an option which is created by Tableau, and that is number of records. So this particular option is not created by the data source. We have not got this particular information from the data source. Now before I use it, let's see what is this number of record. If I drag this number of record over to the report section, you can see there are 195 rows in this particular data. So there are 195 records are there in this data. So you can clear this report. And now I wanted to know, out of this 195 records, how many cars are belonging to the specific body style. That is, how many cars are hatchback, sedan, wagon, etc. I select this particular body style, hold on my control key, and I can go to number of records. I select it, go to show me, and I select a bar graph. Now I have got the report in terms of the number of body style and the number of cars which are there under this particular body style. Now what I want this particular bar graph, the body style which is there in the y-axis, to be in the x-axis. So you can use this swap option and you can have a more clear bar report. You can just drag it, the report, you can just find the edge of the report and you can drag the report as per your convenience. Now these are the body style we have for each of the segment. So if you can click on this T option over here, you can get the number of cars which are there for each of the body style. So we have 6 cars under convertible body style, we have 8 cars under the hardtop, 63 under hatchback, sedan we have 94, wagon 24. To make this information more clear, what we can do, we can have a different color of bar graph, bar over here in this particular report. For that, I can select the body style from the dimension and I can bring it to the color mark. And now I have a different color of bar graph for each of the car number that we have. Now what if I wanted to know the average selling cost for each of the body style? What I can do, I can bring the price over the level mark and I can change the aggregation now, right? We know how to change the aggregations. So we can click on over here, go to measure, and you can select the average price. And we can also format it and we can add a currency value for this. Now we have the average cost for each of the body style that we are dealing with, this particular company is dealing with. So this is a bar graph. We can use a bar graph for comparison. So we have the price comparison for each of the body style over here. So this is how we can use this particular visual segment for comparison. The bar graph, for your information, is the most widely used visual that we use in our day-to-day activities. This is the most commonly used report. This is the most commonly used visual that is used for representing a lot of comparisons. Now in the future we will see how we can use this bar graph in the advanced level of visualization. When I will be discussing that particular segment, we can see how we can convert this particular bar graph into a combo chart or into a stacked bar graph chart using certain advanced visual options. Now the next visual segment that I'm going to discuss is a pie chart. It's a very commonly used chart. The pie chart comes under the visual segment of composition. Now I'll be using a pie chart. I'll creating a pie chart, a simple pie chart. I'll select a new worksheet and let me name this as a pie chart. And I will select the fuel type over here and I'll go to the number of records again and I will go to show me, and this time you can see the pie chart is also enabled over here. Now I click on this particular pie chart and I have got a pie chart which shows me the composition of petrol and diesel. Now this particular pie chart is a bit small. What you can do, we can go and select this standard option, and out of this particular options we can go for the entire view. Now we have a big pie chart over here. Now we can make this pie chart more and more informative. We can bring the fuel type over the level mark, and we can see this is the gas and this is the diesel. Further more information we can add it. We can bring the number of records from the measure section and we can drop it to the level mark, and we can see that there are 175 petrol car and 20 diesel car. We can further edit this particular information associated with this. We can go over here to the level card and you can click on this text option. Now you can see that the fuel type and the number of records both are over here. Now we can edit this particular information. You can select this record, you can make this big, and we can bold, you can make it bold, and you can underline it. And you can apply it, and you can see that we can edit this kind of information that is there in the pie chart. And click on OK. Now the question is when to use a pie chart. If you ask me, a pie chart is best used when your category, when your composition is less than 5. Over here there is 2 composition. Now what if I use a pie chart when there is a lot of comparison, lot of categories. For example, if I use this particular, for example, I have an option over called make. So what is this make? This make is nothing but the name of the manufacturers. So if I select this make option and I go to number of record and I create a pie chart, now this pie chart contains a lot of information. It becomes a very cluttered pie chart. So this is not the best way to show this kind of information. So always try to use pie chart when the number of categories is 5 or less than 5. That is the best way. Now the question is then what we should use when the categories are more than 5. Now you can see this particular pie chart showing a lot of information. Now this is not clear enough to understand the number of manufacturers for each of the section. So how many cars has been manufactured by each manufacturer in this particular data set. Now the option for showing this kind of categories, what you can do, we can go to the show me option, and over here there is one chart called tree map just below the bar graph. So if you can click on this tree map, you can see this particular tree map is the best way to show categories where there is more than 5. Now each of the section of this particular tree map is showing the number of cars produced by each of the manufacturers. So Toyota being the biggest, the size of this particular square is biggest for Toyota, means the highest number of car produced by Toyota is 32. And Mercury being the smallest square means only one car has been produced by this particular manufacturer. Now the size of each of the section reflects the number of car that has been manufactured by this particular maker. To make this particular tree map more and more interactive, what you can do, if I want to know, okay fine, how many cars out of this particular manufacturer, how many cars are again gas, diesel and petrol, we can bring the fuel type over the color mark, and you can see that there's a segment that has been created. So these are the manufacturers who have actually produced the car in terms of diesel, and these are the manufacturers who have produced the car in terms of petrol. Now certain drawbacks of tree map, you cannot increase or decrease the size of the tree map. This size card will not work for tree map. So these are certain drawbacks of tree map, but tree map is a best option to show the composition of your data where the category is more than 5. You have a clear picture, and you can, however, you can explore from your end as what is the best option that we can go and what are the best option that we can take to show more categories in our data. So this is how the composition part works. However, I'll be showing you how we can convert a pie chart into a donut chart in Tableau. Now creating a donut chart in Power BI is just a matter of seconds. But in Tableau, we have to use certain advanced level of visualization. Now this is where things comes into your hand as which tool is best for which. That's why I'm telling you to learn both the tools. You should learn both the tools, because if I want to know how to create a donut chart, if there is a certain kind of analysis where I have to prepare a donut chart, I will go for Power BI, because creating a donut chart in Power BI is much easier than in Tableau. Whereas in Tableau, we have to use certain advanced visualization options to create. However, in next session, I'll be discussing about the advanced visualization option, where I'll be showing you how we can create a donut chart using some of the options. Now, the next segment that I'm going to talk about is a very important segment, that is a line chart. Now, as we all know, that line chart comes under the visual segment of trend. Now for this, we'll work on a scenario where I'll be working on finding the birth ratio in terms of female and male. Now let's get back to the action directly. Now we know how our line chart works. We know the segment under which it comes. So get back to the action. So I'll open my Tableau and let me connect to the different data this time. So this will be an Excel file. Now I'll go over here and I'll use the birth ratio. Now this particular data is a simple data which shows the number of female and number of male that has born during this particular period. Now let us use a line chart to visualize this particular information. So I will directly go to my worksheet, take a new worksheet, and let's name this as a line chart. Now this particular data has a month that is listed under the dimension segment, and the female and the male birth that is listed under the measure section. Now, before I start working on the line chart concept, you need to first understand the concept of discrete and continuous. Now, discrete are nothing but, what are discrete values? Discrete values are nothing which are definite values. For example, if I take a real world example of a discrete value as how many person can pass through a door. So this is a definite value. There can be a definite value like 4, 5. There cannot be a continuous value like 4.5, 5.5 person can pass. So discrete values are those values which are definite, and continuous values are the values which goes to different form, which attains different form, which attains different level of measurement. For example, temperature, age, height. So these are the options which comes under. You can see if you're rolling a ball from a slope, so how much meter it has covered. So these are all called continuous values. Similarly, we'll be using the discrete value and continuous value to create a line chart. Now the first requirement is I wanted to know the female birth, the trend of the female birth in terms of the time. So I'll select the month option. I will hold down my control key and I will select the female birth from the measure section, and I will go to show me, and over here you can see two kinds of line chart. The first is a continuous, and the second one, which is highlighted, is a discrete. So let's create a discrete, select the discrete line chart, and you can see that this is a discrete line chart that has been created, which shows an upward trend in terms of a female birth. Now, what is a discrete? In discrete, before I discuss discrete, the definition of discrete or how the discrete line chart works, you can see this is a default behavior of Tableau. Whenever you're using any date component in your report, so there is a date component over here. By default, Tableau creates a hierarchy in your date. The default hierarchy is year over here. Now you can see there's a plus sign associated with this particular pill. If you click on this plus sign, there's a hierarchy created where the quarter value has been updated. Now if you further click on this plus sign, we can get the definition in terms of months. Now if you further click on this month plus sign, I can get the value in terms of number of female that has born in terms of days. So there are 4 hierarchies that has been created. You can click on this minus sign to reduce the hierarchy. Now this is a discrete line chart. What if I use a continuous line chart? I go over here and I select a continuous line chart. You can see the color of this particular pill has changed from blue to green. Now if I click on this plus sign, the line chart is not getting bifurcated, it's getting transformed from year to quarter, quarter to month, month to week. So the chart, it's the line over here is not getting bifurcated, but it's getting transformed from one state to another. Now if you can click on this downward arrow, you can see there are 2 segments which shows the same information of time components, the same year, quarter, month, day, year, quarter, month, week, number, day. So these are called granularity. This is called, the upper section comes under the discrete granularity and the lower section comes under the continuous granularity. So let us select this month from the continuous granularity. So I'll be working on this continuous granularity. Now this is the line, trend line, which shows the female birth rate. Now what if I want to add one more line to this particular chart, that is the male birth rate. Now this is where we will be testing some of the concept of advanced visualization. So today this is the foundation of an advanced visualization that I'm going to give you a touch of advanced visualization. Now I want to create a chart which should contains both male and female trend line in terms of their birth rate. So what I can do, I can bring the male birth rate and I can release my mouse and I can place it beside the female birth rate. Now you can see the moment I bring the male birth rate, these both lines are created. Now the moment I bring the male birth rate, you can see there are 2 sections that has been created over here. The first is for female and the second is for male. So there are 2 different sections where we can edit the visuals. So let's change the color of the male birth rate to orange so that it can give a clear idea. Now what we can do, instead of using 2 axes over here, why can't we use a single axis for showing these 2 values? This is where we use the concept of dual axis. So dual axis is an advanced visualization option which will actually combine these 2 charts into a single chart. And dual axis is always available in the second pill. If you can click on this arrow, you can see the dual axis option over here. But if you can click on this arrow, there is no dual axis available in this particular pill. So you can click on this dual axis, select this dual axis, and you can see this particular chart has been combined into a single chart. But still, if you can see the axis on both the side, the axes are showing different values. So for 45, it's showing over here something around 28, 27. So what do we have to do? The next thing, we have to synchronize the axis. Now how to synchronize an axis when you're using a dual axis concept or 2 charts? We can go in one of the axes over here, right click on this, and you can go choose this particular option called synchronize axis. And you can see now both the axes has been synchronized. Now that we have synchronized both the axes, we can keep any one axis, right? So you can remove any one of the axes. So let me remove this male birth axis from here. I can do a right click over here and you have to uncheck the show header option. And now we have only one axis. And now that we have only one axis, let's change this female birth into a birth only, because this particular axis shows the birth numbers only. So you can right click on this, click on edit axis, and you can change the title to birth, and you can close it, and you can see the title has been changed to birth. Now this is where, now one more important thing that I wanted to show you guys is the moment I have applied dual access, you can see the shape of this pill has changed into a single pill. There is a small gap over here. Earlier it was a round from both the end for each of the pill. Now it has changed into a single pill because both the charts have been combined. Now this is what we were trying to achieve with the help of a dual access concept. This is a test of advanced visualization that I wanted to make you guys familiar with. However, in my next session, I'll be coming up with some more advanced visualization option, and I will discuss in detail how we can use those options over here. Now these are the visual segments that I want to discuss today. However, the map segment, I have a dedicated session for that because Tableau map is a very important concept. There are a lot of things that we can learn from the map, how we can plot the demography data, how we can use shapes, functions in maps. So this is a very interesting session that will be. So you can learn a lot of new things out of that session. So please stay tuned and please try to learn this particular tool because this is a very powerful tool, and Power BI and Tableau both are market leaders in terms of crunching data and doing visual analytics. So that was all for today's session. I hope you were able to learn something new from this discussion. Next session, we'll be coming up with some new topics. Till then, stay safe and keep learning, guys. Thank you. Good night.